Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Brian Calley, CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Operations, and I want to start off by welcoming one of our new members. They are the 911 tree experts in Kalamazoo. So, welcome to Jared Dykman and his team. So, Brian, about a week and a half ago or so, Gallup released their annual survey results of the most trusted institutions. How did small businesses stack up?
Well, as it has been the case for many years in a row, that small businesses are the number one most trusted in communities around the country. This is a nationwide survey. And year after year now, small business owners are the most trusted. And they ask about pretty much anything that you can think about, from politics to media to health systems to big companies to small businesses, clergy and religion, all these different military, police. And number one is small business, which, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Small business owners are a part of community. They provide opportunity and jobs in the local community, and they're not some institution off someplace else. People can imagine small businesses, like you say, small business owner, and people think of like an actual person, which is really important. It was 67% had high confidence or high trust in small businesses. And then when you put some trust, it went nearly, not quite 100%, but nearly 100%. Just for context, the military came in at 61, the police at 45%, church and religion at 33%. Everything else was below 30%. The so as you and the worst is always Congress. Congress always the least trusted institution. So there is everything has kind of slid in terms of trust. All institutional trust has declined, or nearly all has declined in the last several years, especially since the pandemic. But yet, small businesses remain the most trusted. So that's one of the reasons why we find it such an awesome responsibility to represent small businesses, because they do have trust, and um, that means that they have a special role to play in the system that's making decisions, because they are the main private sector job providers. And even in a state like Michigan that people think is all about big business, a little over half of jobs are from companies with fewer than 100 employees. That's why they're the most trusted, or among the top reasons they're the most trusted.
And it's a good feel good story, and we can all see why it makes sense. But there are some harsh realities facing small business owners. Let's talk about labor force participation being one of them right now. It's been falling in Michigan and the US. So how low is it today, and where will it go from here, do you think?
Yeah, this has been so. First of all, I'd say that our demographics are working against us. So the country is not a young country. The number of people graduating high school and the number of births, all those trend lines are working against labor force participation, which is a fraction. You take the number of people that are working or looking for work, that's the numerator, and divided by the total number of people who are alive, not just people of a certain age, but all people. So it's never going to be 100%, but it has steadily been declining, and there are now a record 105.8 million American adults outside of the labor force. It's never been that high before. And just in just in June, it dropped by 832,000 people. And so as you look at like while the unemployment rate has been very steady at the state and federal level, it's moved a little bit here and there, but it's been very steady. Underneath all of that, even though overall jobs have been declining, the labor force has been declining as well, which means that the percentage unemployed actually stays relatively stable, but not for good reasons. Um, the couple of other stats that I read in this article, that about 23.3 million people are on disability nationwide or illness benefits, and about 5.3 million have simply stopped looking for for work. So there's one thing that was kind of a startling pattern that came out of this most recent publication of the government statistics. Roughly 7 million prime age men, so men between ages 25 to 54, aren't working or seeking work. And that's a very, very high number. And that's normally the group that has the highest labor force. Well, it still is the one with the highest labor force participation rate, but to have that many outside of the labor force entirely is was kind of an eye-popping number.
No, it is kind of a startling number for sure. So that was US related, what's happening here in Michigan.
In Michigan, a lot of the patterns are a little more pronounced here. So in other words, a little more severe in terms of the impact, because on average, our demographics are behind the country. And so the overall labor force participation rate did decline again this month to 59.5%. So that's down 0.3% from last time. So last time I told you it fell below 60%, it was 59.8, and now it's dropped to 59.5. The unemployment rate again, it's at 5%, which is actually a decrease of 0.1%. So basically the same, but actually went down a little bit. But the entire reason that it went down is because labor force shrunk. And so it's not that people found jobs, it's that people stopped looking for them. And it's not the way you want to see that number move. So these are concerning items, and there's a lot of moving pieces underneath it though. So we know that part of it is what's happening generally in the economy, and part of it is um, our demographics as well. But that we know both of those things are at work, and
We're having a little bit of connection difficulty, Brian. Can you hear me okay?
yep, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
All right. I
Okay.
can now. Yeah, I'm not sure where we left off though, to be quite honest. Were
All
we?
right. Well, I would just answering on local labor force participation.
Okay.
Um, and how it has fallen below 60%, but and it threatens our productivity long term. Our demographics are working against us, but also just the opportunities in the labor force are not what they used to be.
All right, let's talk a little bit about AI, one of your hobbies, I would say, right, Brian? And you came across a survey about employment and businesses where AI is being more extensively used. So tell us more.
Yeah, this was pretty interesting. This stuck out to me. Again, it's a national survey of small businesses or small business owners, small businesses um, that it reported 82% of those businesses that reported using AI regularly, using artificial intelligence regularly, have boosted, not declined, but boosted their headcounts, which is kind of counterintuitive. You think of it, people are thinking of it as something that is a threat to overall employment, and yet I can't speak for big business, of course, but small businesses in this survey say those who are regular users of artificial intelligence have increased their employment. And this is interesting to me. It's actually been more closely aligned with what we are seeing and what we're experiencing in our dealings with thousands and thousands of small businesses around the state, is that these tools are kind of leveling the playing field. They're giving small businesses capacity and quickness and expertise that it used to be difficult for them to reach, and also to go after business that before they might not have been able to go after, either from capacity or lack of information or insight. And it's changing that playing field. So yeah, it makes you more productive in many cases. And sometimes in the short term, productivity can cause a decline in overall employment because you don't need as many people to do the same amount of work. But the way it's turning out here is that it's creating enough opportunity that, yeah, more efficiency, but enough new opportunity that is creating increases in headcounts, at least among small businesses who are regular users of artificial intelligence.
I'm going to make a little plug for an SBAM product. So it's SBAM Academy, and we have a variety of different learning opportunities on SBAM Academy, many of which are about AI. So if you're not sure where to start or where to go in your AI journey, check out that. You can find it just from our homepage, sbam.org.
Yeah, let me just throw in one extra thing there too, because you'd mentioned kind of a hobby of mine. It really has turned in. You start off by just kind of messing around with these systems, and I subscribe to several, and utilize them in a lot of different ways for a lot of different purposes. And I've definitely noticed that my own productivity is a lot higher, but it allows me to make decisions faster, getting to like a confidence interval that I used to have to wait on other people for. So it's not like it's not like we stopped using attorneys when we need attorneys and accountants when we need accountants and other types of professionals that we need in order to do some of the work that we do. But it used to be that it would be that something would have to be put into the system, and then there'd be some waiting period to have that digested and responded to, and then you wouldn't want to move forward till you have an idea of what that professional advice is. Um, I don't wait anymore. If I can get to a confidence interval, I know it's not going to be wasted, or there's a high degree of chance that my work is not going to be wasted if I go ahead and move forward with a project and let the legal stuff or the accounting stuff kind of catch up to it. And so just the idea of being nimble and well enough informed. Now, every person's have a different level of confidence that you have to get to, but that's an example of what I've seen in our own organization is we can we're not to a point, we don't hand over work, but we can move a lot faster and move with confidence and be prepared for things more. As we subscribe, actually, we even have a policy here that to the extent that we use artificial intelligence, that our philosophy is human in the loop use of artificial intelligence. In other words, humans are responsible for all the work and all the output that happens in this organization, whether an artificial intelligence tool is put to work or not. And and so the idea that it's still human product, it is still human judgment, it's still human work that is aided by artificial intelligence as opposed to having a machine do the thinking for us. So it is an exciting time. If you haven't checked this out yet, I mean, we're not the only ones that have some programming on it, but what we try to do is just be really practical and how to kind of just get going and try to make sure that this technology doesn't leave you behind.
All right, let's move on and talk about line five. The Whitmer administration did issue a total permit for line five. So, what does this mean for the project?
Yeah, this was something that was hanging out there for a while. It's actually the reissue of a permit. A previous permit had expired. Permits oftentimes usually have an expiration. So you get a permit, you got a certain period of time, and if the project doesn't happen by then you got to renew the permit. Well, this is a project that, of course, has been in the courts and lawsuits back and forth for years and years, and probably will be years to go. Um, that the permit expired, and so there was this question: will the Whitmer administration reissue this permit? And and they did. So it's Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, and that or Eagle, as it's called. That department, there was some speculation: would they reissue the permit? Would they deny it on a second go around? But really, they had no legal basis to deny it. The permit requirements had been met, and so they can't just say they don't like a project. So there were some people that were angry, at the Whitmer administration for reissuing, but they did make the legally correct decision to reissue. It doesn't mean that a project just immediately starts. There's still lots of moving pieces to the debate and legal action around the project, although I do think it'll eventually happen. It certainly won't happen easy.
All right. Brian, let's talk about some changes that have been made to unemployment here in Michigan. What do small business owners need to know now?
Okay, so there was a change in the law. When it happened a while back, we talked about that change in the law, but we want to they went into effect this month. So just want to make sure that people know about it. First, unemployment, the number of weeks a person can be on unemployment for each year is 26. So it's half of the year. Um, that a person can be, that's the biggest change that would affect most employers with respect to rates that you pay. And of course, that will cause some upward pressure on the rates because longer benefits means higher distributions out of the fund that is 100% employee funded. A couple other things are some added protections for survivors of domestic violence. So if somebody loses their job or is unable to work because they're a victim of domestic violence, that now qualifies for unemployment benefits. Um, and then the final thing that I wanted to highlight was the work share program. And in work share, what it says is that it's this is a program you don't have to be all or nothing in terms of laying somebody off or not. That you can reduce somebody's hours if you don't need them 40 hours, then you can reduce the hours and then they can qualify for partial unemployment and then part-time work from you. And this is an expansion of something that already existed. So now if you do reduce an employee's hours by 10 to 60%. So if it's less than 10%, they don't qualify for unemployment. If it's more than 60%, they consider that a full loss and they can of the job they can uh, if if they uh, if they leave employment over that or something, they qualify for unemployment. But but essentially, the way it works is that if somebody, let's say, you need somebody 50% of the time, so you reduce them from full time to half time, then they can qualify for half of the unemployment benefits, and then the other half and then they're getting the part-time salary. So work share is a different type of unemployment. It's unemployment, partial unemployment for part-time people that got their hours reduced. So just something to keep on your radar screen. We know many businesses that use this. Actually, during the pandemic is when we really started, when we really saw this program come into action, and so it's been utilized by a lot of companies, and workers and employees have found it quite useful instead of essentially an all or nothing type of proposition where if you have to reduce somebody's hours, then they need to, um, their employment needs to be terminated in full to get the benefit. Those days are over now, at least if the reduction is something less than 60%.
All right, let's talk about the new bridge to Canada that finally opened today. I know this is a big deal for you personally too, Brian.
Yeah, I was thrilled to see the bridge open. The Canadians celebrated on the Canadian side like a bridge opening ceremony on Friday. There is still ongoing trade disputes between the U.S. and Canada, and so it was a one-sided celebration, if you will. But the bridge did open today, and I saw actually a press release just a little while ago of Governor Whitmer in a black Mustang driving across the bridge. So um, the it's a big deal. This bridge is it's a much needed um, infrastructure asset for those who live in Southwest Detroit. The current bridge creates a lot of truck traffic and truck idling in around and through neighborhoods. And so splitting that traffic and having less backups and idling is something that will will definitely benefit communities in the area. But also, even though there's some pretty serious trade disputes that are happening right now, if you look historically, and what I expect over the long term in the future is that um, the world's it's usually either the first, second, or third biggest trade partners. Um, it'll be back. Okay, so like right now, there's kind of a lull with this dispute, but sooner or later, that relationship will be back. And yes, it is important to me as part of the administration who worked to negotiate an agreement with the Canadians at a time when Michigan was basically broke. So we needed them to foot the whole bill, and it was not inexpensive, $4 or $5 billion, with all the interchanges and connections to freeways, the bridge itself, and the plazas, and all the things that have to happen around an international crossing. But it is in place and open. It looks fabulous, and I think it'll be. It's one of those. It's one of those items in a city that will end up being a hallmark of the city and maybe a hallmark of the states. Whenever you see a picture of Detroit, they have the Renaissance Center in the picture. This is just an absolutely beautiful, massive, important bridge, and I think that you're going to see it show up in a lot of the images when they show the city, because it will quickly become part of the defined um, skyline of the city.
All right, let's end today's show with Election Watch 2026, starting with the race for governor.
Yeah, here we go. So early voting has started, and you've got two contests that are happening um, with Sheriff Chris Swanson trying to challenge Jocelyn Benson, who is a prohibitively far ahead front runner um, in the Democratic primary. I do fully expect that she's going to win that contest. On the Republican side, John James, and I think last week it was covered that Mike Cox had dropped out and supported John James. Um, no sign of slowing down from Perry Johnson, whose contributions into the race and most recent filings show $30 million. So that is on a primary, that's really something. Um, and so that's a lot of volume, but recent there has not been recent polling that I've seen in those two primaries since the last ones that we talked about. And so this will be the Republican side is the one that's interesting because it's not the outcome. It seems like James is a favorite with the president's support in the Republican primary, but um, it's there hasn't been recent enough polling for me to know whether $30 million overcomes that from Perry Johnson or not. So it will be interesting to see how that contest turns out. But the betting markets, I looked at that just a little while ago. Was that this morning or last night? But in the last day, betting markets are saying 85% chance that Jocelyn Benson wins the race in November anyway. So it's definitely going to, it's a type of cycle. It seems like it might be an uphill battle for Republicans.
All right, let's move on to the race for U.S. Senate.
So this one is a national spectacle. There's all eyes on Michigan. I've seen a lot of national articles on Stevens and El Sayed, who are the two candidates that are vying to take on Mike Rogers. And interestingly, the polling on this one um, for the general election, which is still a long way away, looks pretty close. Like this could be a real race. And the in November, depending on who wins the primary. So Mike Rogers is Republican. The between El Sayed and Haley Stevens, um, the big development last week on the heels of Bernie Sanders and AOC coming to Michigan and doing 3 rallies for El Sayed over the weekend. Then Governor Whitmer came out and endorsed Haley Stevens for the seat. And the Whitmer endorsement is a big one in the Democratic primary. She still does enjoy very high approval ratings, but the signal that it sends to me, that Governor Whitmer has really good timing and political instincts. This is, and if somebody doesn't like her, policies and stuff, don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you that like she's got political instincts and has proven to always have um, good timing in politics. The fact that she endorsed, it's not just is she going to make a difference? It will make a positive difference for Haley Stevens. It makes her more likely to win. But what it says to me is that the governor believes that her endorsement will make a difference enough to win the race. If she didn't see that, she wouldn't do it. Okay, so to me, the signal is not just some support is going behind Stevens. It's that a very kind of talented, in tune person in the political system in Michigan believes that it's going to make a difference or the difference in the election. And so I would say that the confidence level that Haley Stevens will pull this election off and for the primary to me went up because I don't think that Whitmer would have endorsed if if she didn't think it was going to be a decisive move. So we'll see if I'm right about that or not. But at this point, it's officially still kind of a toss-up election. Last election showed Stevens out a little bit, with a lead a little bit bigger than before, but still close and still a lot of undecided people. And but time's up. Early voting has already started, and we will know for sure very shortly. I think a week from tomorrow is the election.
It is indeed, and the Small Biz Pack here at SBAM will be issuing another small round of endorsements tomorrow. So that press release will come out. You can check our website for more information, and then we'll keep you posted after the election next week. So that's all the show that we have for you today. A quick reminder that we will be in Dearborn tomorrow for our owner to owner event. You can find details on our website. It's not too late to join us. Otherwise, we'll see you back here next Monday at 3 o'clock.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.